Why do we die? This may seem like an unusual topic to be in this book. Uh, this book, a lot of it is about the human colonization of space. But if you look at the schematic for the book, this book is about how we can have our best possible lives. And that requires an understanding of human nature, which requires an understanding of evolution. So, our understanding of human nature has to be based on our understanding of evolution plus observations. So, there is an appendix in the book which covers two evolution topics. One is why do we die? And the other is an explanation for the birth sex ratios. And these topics essentially show how evolution can explain many things that we observe about humans. So, this is the theory of entropy versus maximal reproductive cycle and lifespans. This is a paper which actually I wrote back sometime in around 1990. And it was based on an observation that the giant tortoise, which has a lifespan of about 150 years or more, and a horse which also which is about the same size but has a lifespan only of around 40 years. And then the question which I started thinking about, why is it that one of them has such a greater lifespan compared to the other? So the answer I came up with has to do with entropy. And entropy is the enemy of continuation of life. The universe continually moves from a state of lower probability to a state of higher probability in an irreversible process. So this is a probabilistic, you can say a probabilistic law. And if you look at life shows a very high degree of organization. So we would expect that increasing entropy means that this organization should disintegrate. However, there is a method by which life continues in spite of entropy increasing. So what happens is that, and if you come back to lifespan, what happens is that evolution trades off slower or faster activity rates against lesser or greater resources for the reproductive cycle. And the optimum solution depends on upon the niche the organism occupies in the ecosystem. So this theory is actually backed by multiple observations from the real world, such as the relation between lifespans and activity rates for different animals, between lifespans and brain size, and something which I call a two-speed organism, Elysia marginata. And these organisms are able to regrow an entirely new body from just their heads. So from an evolutionary perspective, longer lifespans and greater activity rates are both positive. If you're able to run faster away from a predator, or if you're able to run faster to chase a prey, that's a good thing. However, a longer lifespan is also a good thing because it gives the organism more time to reproduce, and if the organism is belongs to a species where they nurture their young, then it gives the organism more time to nurture the young, and so on. So evolution trades off activity rate with lifespan to give the animal the optimal for the ecosystem niche it occupies. Ideally, the animal should be able to both run fast and live a long time, but if the animal's activity rate is higher, then the disintegration of the organism, of the organization which forms the animal, that is also faster, resulting in a smaller lifespan. So evolution has to balance the two. Some people mistakenly believe that lifespans are determined by telomere length or even a dead gene. These ideas are incorrect. The idea that if we had longer telomeres, we would have longer lifespans shows a lack of understanding how evolution works. The issue is causality. Longer telomeres do not need great resources. So if evolution was able to increase lifespan by simply increasing the length of the telomeres, it would have done so. So here are some examples of the trade-off between activity rate and lifespan. So the giant tortoise lives for about, some of them have lived for about 200 years. Their average weight is about 250 kilograms, about half that of a horse that lives only 25 to 30 years. Typically, larger animals live longer, they need more time to mature, etc. So how does a giant tortoise live that long? Well, a giant tortoise lives that long because it has a defense that a horse does not possess. It has a very thick defensive shell. Because it has this defensive shell, it reduces the need to be, for the tortoise to be able to run fast. And therefore, it reduces the benefit of having a high activity rate. So evolution gives the tortoise a low activity rate and a longer lifespan compared to a horse. Quite dramatically, the queen termite, which barely moves, lives 30 years and gives birth to worker and soldier termites, which scurry around, always working or defending. And these worker and soldier termites only live for about a year or two, even though they are very closely related to the queen termites. But the queen termite sits there, doesn't move, can get away with a much lower activity rate, whereas the worker and soldier termites, which have to constantly move about, they need a high activity rate. A high activity rate is good for the work that they do. So evolution gives them a high activity rate and therefore a lower lifespan. And of course, I'm not suggesting that you should just kind of go and lie down and just try to reduce your activity rate and think that you'll get a longer lifespan. No, that won't happen. Our bodies have been designed for a certain activity rate. Reducing that rate may initially increase our lifespan, but further reductions will simply result in organ in organ malfunctions and may reduce lifespan. So the original organism from which we all came was Luca, which lived about 4 billion years ago. And so Luca had this organization which we have inherited. So this organization has survived in a universe of constantly increasing entropy. And entropy, like I said earlier, is the idea that disorder increases, organizations die down, they die off. So there has to be some process, there has to be some strategy which enables this organization that we associate with life to have survived. And in my book, I describe a 4-step process by which this happens, the strategy followed by organisms to essentially not overcome entropy. You can't overcome entropy. Entropy is a law of nature. So you can say that to be able to survive, to keep the organization, to let the organization survive in an environment of increasing entropy. So that's there in the book. The QR code is below.